You're assigned to coach a team that clearly doesn't want your help. The person that hired you insists it's your job to make them want coaching. So do you push forward? Do you refuse? Are there hurt feelings to go around? I would say the bad thing to do in this situation would be to just take the paycheck and cash it and nod your head and phone in the coaching. I'm not saying I've not seen that before.
I was going to say, if I had $1 for every time I've seen that. You can do it maybe 1 or 2 times in your career, and then you get known for that.
Well, that's the rest of the agenda for today. So if you're
great agenda.
If you're not interested in coaching, thanks for coming to the podcast. Like and subscribe.
There you go.
Coaching unwilling teams, like any team, not just a software team, not just like a Scrum Master or Agile coach. I'm talking about just coaching, because there are books written by, probably the most famous book. Sorry, I've actually read this book. I need to go look at it for a second.
Coaching Agile Teams?
No. Oh, good.
That's
book.
a great book.
Good book. Bill Campbell. I've read the Bill Campbell book. What was the...
That book is not new. That goes back a long way.
No. Oh, A $1 Trillion Coach by our friend Eric Schmidt.
Our friend Eric Schmidt.
That's right. And Jonathan Rosenberg and Alan Eagle. The $1 Trillion Coach. That was the book that I read before. So people up in the rarefied air, Steve Jobs, Eric Schmidt, our friend Eric Schmidt, they have coaches. So you're going to tell me you're so awesome, you don't need a coach, and they have coaches.
Yeah, so let's kind of, take the layers apart on this flaky pastry here.
I'm going to need you to work on Sunday.
So listen, this is a really good topic, I feel like, not just for people that are in the coaching space, but people that are in the space where they've had coaching or they wish they had coaching, right? So let's talk about this. The book that I referenced earlier, by the way, Lyssa Adkins' book, Coaching Agile Teams, mostly, as the title suggests, talks about Agile teams. Right. But coaching isn't just restricted to Agile teams, right? So we're going to start there with the teams, as most people can relate to in the audience, and then we'll kind of go to other areas where coaching is also prevalent. So what happens more often than not is there is some sort of a trigger that somebody gets a hold of and says, hey, listen, we need coaching here, right? We're not doing things right. And so that takes a number of different forms. Mm-hmm. Typically, it is not coming from the teams themselves because they are heads down every sprint. They feel like they're doing a good job. They don't know they need coaching necessarily. There are always exceptions to what I'm saying, but for the most part, that's true in my experience at least. What happens rather is this. Somebody in management, leadership, they look at the team that is doing what they're doing and say, we could do more. So we need coaching because I've just talked to my peers at a conference somewhere or whatever, and they tell me they have coaching for their teams. Mm-hmm. So we need coaching, right? So we contact a coach and ask them to come in. And that's typically how that happens. If you're in a large organization, you may have teams that are performing better than other teams for whatever reason, but they are. Yeah. Every team's unique. So then it's the desire on the part of management to elevate the performance of the team that is, in their opinion at least, is not performing as well. So they reach out to a coach, and it's a team coach in this discussion right now. And they say, this team has great potential. They need to do better. Yeah. Can you come in and coach them? If you come into a team, how do you know they need coaching? You need some validation up front.
Well, I think the implication of this podcast is more than like, you're not sure. I think it's the team actively tells you.
He's refusing.
We don't need this.
So I think it's up to the coach to figure that out quickly, right? Take the temperature and say, is this team receptive of coaches or coaching in general or not?
Well, let's start there just to get the agenda kicked off. The organization has decided that, yes, they've identified, yes, there is a need for a coach. Like whatever that need is, whatever the reason is they've identified. Yeah. Could be legitimate reasons or not. We're not going to get into that. In a lot of corporate environments, coaches are assigned to teams without that team's consent or input. So you might be starting as a coach already behind in terms of developing a relationship because you've started in this power dynamic where like, they're being brought in to help, but the team feels like it's surveillance. You're immediately going to start with resistance. Everything you don't want, right, you're immediately going to start with. So if we're going to break this into for and against, sometimes the teams need some sort of external intervention and they don't necessarily know it. And also because they're so focused on the work, like you started by saying, they're not taking a step back to realize that like, oh, we are really blocked when we try to do this, or oh, we are really slow when it comes to deployment or whatever because we don't have DevOps skills or whatever it is. Like that, the team has blind spots, basically, that they're not going to realize and ask for help while they're focused on the work of the team. And maybe because of the corporate way that we do business, there's no opportunities to stop. Like the work is just a continuous grind that there's no stops. We're maximize efficiency. There's no stops.
Yeah, I certainly agree that the teams are just focused on the work of the sprint, every single sprint. But there's the other side of it is this. They genuinely do believe, at least as a coach I've seen this, that they're doing things the right way, right? Yeah. And whatever they're doing becomes institutionalized. And then so you come in as a coach and say, wow, why are you doing things that way? And they go, that's how it works around here.
Yeah.
We're unique. This is how it works. We've always done it that way. It's always there. The teams never had input in selecting you as a coach, of course. But at the same time, you were hired to coach a team. You didn't get to pick your team. Now, both of these entities are in it together.
Yeah.
So one of the very first things that happens, like I think you started off with this, Brian, teams will just have a natural resistance and they feel like they're being spied upon. This is the surveillance thing, right? Yeah. So as a coach, you need to be mindful of that, right? And you come in not saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You come in and just observe.
Oh, you're observing until they ask you, and then it's basically pull-based help, not push-based.
That's ideal. So what happens oftentimes is you're observing because you're not intervening or saying anything.
Yeah.
So then you need to know as a coach when to interject, right? And often I found it's often beneficial to not just go in with a course correction immediately, right? Or even after observing for some time. Don't do that. Build in the relationship and the trust first. So go in with just help me understand why you do things this way. And then that's it. You stop there. Even though you don't agree with it, which 9 times out of 10 you don't because they're malpractices. But this is not the time to say, hey, stop doing this, start doing this. It's just understanding and empathizing with the team and then suggesting, have you thought about what would happen if you tried doing something different for a sprint?
What would you say if I said that, well, if you're waiting for teams to ask for help, like the high performing teams, they're going to get support because they're constantly trying to self-improve, whereas these teams obviously are struggling and can't get stuff across the finish line. They're never going to get help because if we have a mix of on and offshore teams, the offshore teams in a particular culture, I don't even need to reference a culture, they won't ever get help because they don't want to ask for help. That's just the culture.
Yeah, I agree with that. They don't want to ask for help. That's the culture. And then there's another thing that gets in your way as a coach, and that is you can coach people and mentor them, etc., but not the contractors. We don't pay for that. So when teams start to kind of shut you out, right, even if it's not explicit, it's because you went in too soon and you started to change things around. They feel like, well, this guy or person comes in here and is telling us to change the way we're working, but they don't understand. They don't understand whatever goes after that, ... They don't understand that we have corporate limitations, the way we work. Our org design is geared up to working in this way. We can't deploy into any environment what we produce because we're matrixed and it's their job over there and their plate is full and we just simply pass it over to them. It's a handoff. He doesn't or she doesn't understand that. That's what I'm saying is go in with an open mind and just watch and listen. Understand these things and then suggest one thing at a time. Just one thing initially that's small that you can get a win on, right? What if you broke down your 8-point stories that you don't seem to finish in the last 2 or 3 sprints into smaller stories? Let me help you with that process. You're at this point, you're coaching, but you're also, in a way, you're also training. So you help out with that. Get that win. And then pat them on the back for doing that. Even though it was at your suggestion, that doesn't matter. Okay. That's your job. So you have to operate in the shadows as a coach, right? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, operate. This is a clandestine job. Like operate in the shadows. Nobody knows their name. Small changes at a time without them looking like you're forcing them on the team.
There's a million questions I want to ask about this. It's like as a coach, are you tracking all the different things that you're trying and you're keeping them on a board or a report or something somewhere? Because at some point, management is going to come to you and be like, oh, I don't know about the ROI of coaching or whatever. And then you're going to say like, hey, man, get out of my office. Yeah. Anyway, we can say the whole podcast, but I wanted to, there's some takeaways here.
Valid point about tracking. Yeah. It is absolutely valid, but not necessarily because you're trying to justify to management. It's also trying to showcase to your team that whatever they just tried, at your suggestion, albeit, is actually working.
I mean, also a year from now, you can look and say like, here's where we were when we started.
Right.
Because here's all the things that we did, and these are not, they are work. They're not like software development features or whatever.
Right.
They are work of learning how to work more efficiently in the environment that we're in, together with the people that we have, which is crazy that people think that that's not. Yeah, that's not work.
It is. I'm a big fan of visualizing on the board, first of all, and keeping something in the backlog for process improvement.
Yeah.
But when you do this to a team that is basically pushing back at this, we're doing fine. We don't need this, right? Go lightly and say, these are improvement initiatives that we're taking on as small things in a sprint. However, everybody on the team is doing this. So it's not like, okay, Joe and Mary over here have these things. Yeah. It's for everyone. Second point is, every so often, I'll just say that, right? Because it's contextual again. Not every day, at least. Every so often at the daily sync, raise that and say, this is what we're striving towards. Are we doing this? Yeah. You're not saying, why aren't we doing this? We're simply saying, are we doing this, right? And it can be symptomatic that you're addressing symptoms. So, for example, if someone says, development's complete. We didn't have time to finish all the testing, so we'll just move it to the next sprint. You happen to know from previous sprints that this is a symptom that this team has, right? And that's when you say, well, how could we have done this better? Ask the question and then wait.
It's wild that what you're proposing of like, how can we work together better, or how can we handle our problems as a team better, when like the product manager does this all the time. Like, here's where we're going in the future. Here's the goal of the sprint. Here's where we're going this quarter, and I'm going to bring it up every day just to keep everyone on the same page. Yeah. But when you want to do that for organizational design and the organizational development of like us working together, it's bananas. It's like no ROI. It's people lose their minds and they revert back to the 4-point plan of start up, cash in, sell out, bro down. Because there's no other plan. This is a frustrating category that I want to move past because I'm so frustrated with this category. But there are some actionable takeaways that we talked about. I think about coaches a lot when I think about like people that are not permanent employees. I think about contract type of consultant type of. If you're in one of those roles, if you're a coach and you're coming on, or if this is your first time doing it, right, and you're looking for help, right, maybe you found this podcast, like and subscribe. Then I sketched out 3 points when you were talking. Has the team received clear feedback about how their work is impacting people? Do they understand why someone thinks they need help for that work? So like, hey, your work is important because,
right.
And then here's the things that I'm observing, and I think that you could get some outside help, to help you with. So I was trying not to say help in the same sentence twice. And then the other one is, and have they been given an actual choice in the way in which they receive that help? So there's like a 3-point plan, not the Cartman 4-point plan. This is a 3-point plan, which is like, if you're starting as a coach, it would be nice to know these things. Hey, have you made this clear? Or is it the first time they're going to be hearing there's problems that management is observing, or whoever decided to hire the Agile coach or business coach, this is the first time they're hearing that they have problems, is like this coach comes in. That's a bad entry point.
I just want to make a couple of quick points, right? So one is, I said earlier, start with something small, right? But one of the things you could do is also just say, look, here are 3 things that I've observed. Which of these 3 do you think you should pick up to improve on, right? And give them the say in that. So it's like, okay, well, they're going to come in and say, you know what, we always move things from sprint to sprint. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. So that's an improvement item, or whatever it might be. Have them have a say in whatever it is that they're committing to improve upon. That's one thing. The other thing is, when you have too many options, right, it's not a good thing to come in and say, well, out of these 8 things, which 1 or 2 do you want? Because the underlying essence there is, we're not doing so good. We've got 8 things we can improve upon. But before this person arrived here, we're doing great. So that's going to it's going to have that positive feedback effect, unfortunately, in the teams resisting your help, basically. Right. The focus on business value, that needs to be something that you always bring up, because the teams could say, well, look, before you joined, we've always been delivering pretty much on point. Our velocity is fairly good. Like, it hasn't really dipped much, over the last 5 or so sprints. It's been consistent. So we're consistently, our say-do ratio is consistent, is what they're saying, right? And that's great. But as a coach, you can come in and say, well, you're finishing the work every sprint that you're committing to, but is it really extending business value? How are you carving out the work? Is it just, some of it at least, is just purely academic? You create these things, whatever they are, user stories, PBIs, etc. Get them to done and say, pat yourself on the back. But what have you given the user?
Right.
They don't necessarily balk at that, but if you don't bring it up, again, not day one, but at some point soon, then you're not really doing your job. And when you do bring it up and something happens with that, document it, right? Because again, going back to your point about metrics for senior managers or leadership that got you in the first place.
So let's assume that the team understands the concerns and they're begrudgingly accepting.
Begrudgingly.
Now what? So it brings us to the next category. Should coaches be assigned to teams, or should teams choose their coaches?
Whoa.
So most organizations assign coaches to teams the same way they assign managers. Just structural decision making that's made above the team level. You were never asked. Honestly, they don't even really know that you're even here. Like, you're still on a spreadsheet. But coaching is fundamentally different than management.
Yeah.
Just to be able to make progress, the trust that's required, the willingness to experiment, that kind of stuff in your professional world, that doesn't really lend itself to this method that is like, hey, we're just going to assign you a coach, kid, and then get back out there go back out there and play the role. Can that relationship work when it's mandated? So that's this category, and there's two sides of this category. There's teams have to have some kind of say in choosing their own coach on one side, and the other side is like the team's choice. It's better to just give them somebody that can produce, and then let them figure it out, because like the team, it's not always practical or beneficial for the team to have an involved process to figure out their coach. Okay, I'll give you the against, because I think this is going to be a pretty quick category. Sorry, I outlined this category in the teams having a say in who they bring on as coach, but the real discussion point I think is going to happen in this category is, should the teams have a say in getting rid of their coach if they end up not liking the coach? And so there's just two sides of this. The side is that like the teams have to have input into the coaching relationship and their coach and their practices in general, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, because there's no trust, that relationship can't be established. They're probably not a good coach for the team. They're probably never going to fit. And then that's one side. I'll leave that side to you. On the other side, the management side, we want to make people happy and whatnot. We want their opinions to be considered. But however, the team, they don't necessarily know what kind of coaching they need until we've given them an experienced coach who's kind of seen it all, to let us meaning us, the management, know which path they need to go down. Point number one. Point number two, like in large organizations like this, of course, everyone wants the best coach. Everyone wants the best NFL coach to work for their team. There's only one of them. They can't go around everywhere. I just want to throw it in there. A little salt and pepper, a little salt bay. That's right. And then teams might choose coaches that make them comfortable rather than actually make actual change. Ooh. That's my spiciest one in here. That's my favorite one in here. And also the one I've seen the most, by the way, is teams go get the coach that's just going to rubber stamp all and be like, well, I'm just meeting you where you are. We got to meet the teams where they are.
That's a trigger phrase for me.
That's right.
Let's break this down into its components, right? The teams that need help often do not realize they need help.
Yes.
So we'll start with that one. If they don't need help, then management believes they need help. You can basically challenge that. Why is it that management believes they need help? What's the driving force here? Well, we want team A to be producing, delivering the same as team B. Well, now you need a coach that understands and can coach management that every team is unique and they're dynamic. You don't compare teams in that way. So we can start there. But let's assume that you're a coach, you're brought in by leadership, management, and you're basically told to go to a team and help them out. The team has had no say in this.
Right.
I think in the previous category we talked about, at least I led with, Don't go in just guns blazing and say, change this, change that. Just basically observe. But here, one of the things you should do up front as a coach is to say, listen, I'm a coach. I'm here to learn about how you're working.
When teams have no say in who coaches them, that is interpreted as a management disguised as support or coaching or whatever.
And this often happens when there's another issue at play that is not dealt with, which is something like perhaps org design or the way the org is structured.
There's a conflict.
Nobody wants to change
there's
that,
a conflict happening.
right?
You just stumbled on another like pet peeve podcast that I want to have that I don't know. I read a book recently about running better meetings, and the main thing is to draw out conflict. Obviously, you have to know how to draw out conflict in a healthy way, but to always be seeking to draw conflict out into the open to talk about it. Because if you never had the skill to draw, like if you're always avoiding conflict, you deflect it or you take it offline or whatever, that kind of stuff, and you don't have a way to pull it out of people and then put it on the table and then look at the facts and actually deal with it, like you're never going to make progress. And that's sort of this same thing is like there's a conflict going on, nobody wants to address it, they bring in an outside person, and hopefully that outside person is good at, right? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The conflict could be anything.
You're right. But also there's a real danger here, and that is the outside person is basically a pawn in this game.
Right.
And management bring them in just to say, look, this team is beyond help, right? We even got them an outside consultant to help out, and they didn't improve. So there was a premeditated agenda already in place.
It's still a conflict. It's just now you just introduce that the manager is like shirking their responsibility, which is not that. Again, all these are not
part of this podcast.
Are you arguing on the against side? Because you're supporting all my points here. Is like
I've seen all of this.
You're supporting all my points. Is like now they're bringing you in as a coach. Welcome to the organization, Elm. They're bringing you in as a coach now as like the scapegoat, because when you don't resolve the conflict, that none of us want to deal with it.
Sure.
No, because we have political capital and it needs to be spent elsewhere, getting us our director promotions or whatever.
Right.
Like, we bring you in, and now any like failure to address a conflict, well, that was Ohm's conflict. That's not good. It's very scary.
That happens a lot.
If trust is the foundation for effective coaching, and the team knows their challenges better than anyone, like I would expect the 4 category here is the team needs some say in the feedback for their coach. I don't even know if that avenue is open in most organizations, but they need some say to at least get feedback. I don't know where the feedback goes. I don't know how it works.
This avenue is definitely not open in most, if not all, organizations, because the team is simply assigned a coach. But then it's up to the coach to say, look, I'm here because, and then open the door and invite the team in and say, what is it that you're struggling with? Instead of, well, okay, I've been told that you have these challenges. Yeah. Like that's just like it's a bad position to go in and just throw the hammer down and say get the teams to tell you that, and then have them rank those and vote on those and say, well, what should we work on first? What do you think you should be worked on first? We'll pick that and then go with that. All along, what you're doing, whatever time frame this takes, could be 2-3 sprints, whatever it is, you're building the relationships and the trust with that team.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Because the category here is should the teams have a say in choosing/firing their coaches? But I'm going to give you a preview of my takeaway in here, because I already have it written. It says if you're a coach and you're assigned to a team, I would hope that you can negotiate a trial period. Like you have a trial period. I don't know what the trial period is. Maybe it's different for every organization. But I figure if you've done it enough professionally, you know that if you're not meshing with the team after 90 days, you spend the first few sessions getting to know them, understanding their challenges, kind of what you talked about. I would say there's a trial period. At the end of that trial period, like you need to sit down with parties involved and discuss. These are things this is what I observe. This is where the team thinks they need to go, which they could use your method. You just said, hey, they ranked what they need. Here's what I think they need. Because now I assume you're talking to the person that is paying for you to be their coach.
Correct.
And this also, like, I guess this sort of like we're pigeonholing ourselves to development teams. Like if we take a step back, how do you do this with an executive? They have to be open enough to discuss. So like, this is where I think I need to go. And then the coach has to be open enough to be like, I know that you say that, but here's where your real shortcomings are. You know what I mean? You're real terrible at sales. You're curt with people. You jump straight to solutions. You know what I mean? Like a lot of feedback that might be hard to hear.
Yeah.
And again, like you read the $1 Trillion Coach. There's a lot of examples in there about the coach in that book holding people accountable. Anyway, the point here is you sit down with everyone. You talk about what they want to get, and then kind of your assessment of where they are going to, because at some point you have to agree, like, hey, we're going in the same place.
Yeah, so I want to break this into two different areas, right? One is the development team. So when you come in, they don't know what challenges they even have.
Sure.
So you have to kind of flesh those out, and then, like I said, invite them to figure out which ones they need to prioritize, etc.
And Alex, sorry, I wanted to jump in because you said the development team, and you're referencing this from the coach perspective.
Yes.
But when I'm hearing this, I've started with many new development teams as a product manager, and there is an element, because I've worked on development teams so long and I can see these patterns very quickly. It's part like a player coach. When I join with these teams, I can see like, oh, you guys are real bad at estimating, or oh, you guys don't know how to deploy. There's only one person on the whole team that can deploy, or whatever. Oh, here's another one. There's only one person on the whole team that has real QA skills,
right?
That thinks about testing. Like, obviously there are skills, they are on the team, but they need to be spread and adopted as like a holistic solution or systemic. What I'm trying to say,
you're trying to get to a self-managing.
What I'm trying to say is I've joined teams many times where I'm sort of like a player coach as a product manager, and I'm trying to get team. I never want to tell teams about the process of developing, because that's not why I'm there as the product manager.
Sure.
So I try to get them to come to the learnings by constantly repeating these things over time. This sounds very much the same. It
is the same. It is a little bit different when you talk about executive level teams, right? And that's because of this. There's a lot of power dynamics at play.
Did you say a lot of power dynamics, meaning the most dysfunctional teams I've ever seen?
Indeed. The most dysfunctional teams, yes, indeed. So you brought in to coach an executive team, right? And here, the same principles that we've talked about thus far, you need to rethink, because it's no longer about just sitting back and observing for a while, right? Because you think about what we just said about the team coming in, as you come in as a coach and the team saying, wait, we're doing great.
Yeah.
Well, magnify that now by the number of people that you have on the exec team, and then double it, because that's how it works. Every person on the exec team, has their own opinions and beliefs, and they also have an ally on the team. So your work is cut out for you, right? So one of the things you need to do going in is align yourself with the person who has brought you in and the purpose behind them bringing you in. It doesn't matter if you're curing cancer or whatever. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares on the exec team. The only person is the person who's brought you in and is paying for you to make a difference, at the expense of some other things that you know need to be done right. Let's say operations. You can see some efficiencies that could be gained there, or effectiveness, whatever. But that's not why you were brought in. I would document it, but not necessarily publish it, right? Just keep it. But also keep coming back to the one document, hopefully, that you created or co-created with the person that hired you, as far as why are you there. Keep coming back to that and focus your coaching around that.
Yeah.
And you will have people that will always poo-poo your being there. HR, for example, if you're coaching an exec team, HR would say, well, this is all good, but we have to abide by these regulations. So this is how we've been doing things, and we're not changing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no how can we perhaps change? No, there's none of that. We're not changing. Same thing could happen with finance, anybody else. It doesn't matter. So as a coach on the exec team, what do? Right? That's not a battle you want to fight. You want to now go back and say, why was I brought in here? Why did the person who's paying for me bring me in? Yeah. You've had that interview with them up front. Go back to those notes. Ignore all of these things that are being pushed at you, and focus on the things that you can make a difference on, no matter how small they are. If you're not doing that, guess what? That coalition I mentioned earlier will only get stronger. One person will say to the other person on there, why are we even here? And the third person, I agree. Before you know it, there's going to be dissent, overt or covert, right? And you'll find yourself swimming against the tide.
So we've established a baseline of consent, And now we're going to move on to the messy part, where the team says that they don't want coaching because they genuinely don't think they have any problems. We're all awesome, Om. That's what I'm saying. So that leads us to who gets to decide if a team needs help or not, which is sort of the executive category that you were talking about. Yeah. Everyone's pointing fingers like, no, they need the help. No, they need the help. So one of the most common scenarios a coach faces is the manager says a team is underperforming. A product team has poor stakeholder relationships or isn't collaborating well with other product teams or other program teams or whatever. When you talk to them, they don't see it. Oh, that person just doesn't like us, or oh, these people are always late, or oh, it's this other program or whatever. Some of which might be legitimate reasons. It's fundamental questions. Whose reality matters? Who has the authority to define, quote, the problem?
That is a really good question. So if you're at the team level, right, and you come in, somebody told you why they need you to be there. Person that hired you maybe, but somebody said, hey, come in and help us with this team. So first of all, have a chat with them, figure out why they believe they have issues.
Yeah.
And then talk to the teams and say, what are some of the challenges that you have? And you're not necessarily pointing at anybody in particular, right? Mm-hmm. So again, what really helps is the usual things that we all know. Open sessions, anonymized feedback onto a whiteboard, whatever, right? And then have people look at those and say, yeah, I like this one, or I like mine better. So have them vote on it. And out will come one or two things that the team collectively believes they have challenges with. They may not be the same challenges as what management had when they told you to come in. If they are, then it just validates management's assumptions. If they're not, guess what? You go back to management and say, yeah, I hear you. Mm-hmm. However, this is what the team thinks that they're struggling with. So I'm going to focus on what their needs are unless you tell me otherwise. And here's how I know what their needs are. I did this survey, etc. Right? If they tell you, no, just do what I say. Well, that's one message. If they say, this is good, go ahead and do this. This is why you're here. That's another message. Park those thoughts for a minute, because I'm going to come back to those in the second half of this, which is, should teams be able to fire their coach? Take the happy path. Let's say management says, this is good. The teams say these things, and that's where they need help, so go for it. Now you have validated the need with the team. You've endorsed those through management, but that's kind of the by the by. It doesn't really matter as much. Yeah. Now you go back to the team and say, of these challenges, like this is a repeat of what I said earlier, which ones do you want to focus on first? And stay with that, right, for a bit.
Yeah.
And rinse and repeat. When you're doing that, you're building trust because you're asking for their input and not coming in after 2 or 3 sprints of observation and say, hey, you're not doing this well. That's more of an edict from you, as opposed to your stats say this. Like, you're basically being evidence driven, but also asking their intuition.
Let me salt and pepper out some against points here. External perspectives are necessary. I'll be on the against side of this one. Sometimes I'm on the against side because that's the way that the dice roll out when we roll them beforehand. But sometimes I'm on the against side because I think it's just a better arguing point. Sure. And this one is like, sometimes you need to get an external perspective. I'll give you 3 points. I would give you 4 points, but the 4 points would be startup, cash in, sell out, bro down. And I'm not giving you those points yet. So teams tend to normalize their dysfunction. So they develop defensive routines around these dysfunctions. They don't see them as dysfunctions. It's just the way we've always been doing business. And they need an outside perspective because this has become institutionalized.
Exactly.
Number one. Number 2, if the team's work is causing pain for external customers or even other teams, like consuming teams, which I would consider customers, right? Because again, I worked on teams where they're platform teams and the internal developers are your customers. So like, I consider anyone that consumes your stuff your quote customer.
Sure, internal or external.
If your work is causing pain to those customers' perspectives, or I guess I should say the stakeholders' perspective, matters. Regardless if the team isn't really determining like, well, they're internal, they don't have much impact, blah blah. Or if we do the stakeholder management 2x2
matrix, yeah,
they're like, oh, well, they're low interest, low power. Yeah, you're causing a lot of issues, even if it's not a big thing for you, it's a big thing for other teams. And while you technically hit your deadlines or whatever, you're not looking at the impact, like the people impact of how that's affecting other teams. And the last one is feedback loops in most organizations. Even feedback loops of like how we determine if we're doing good or not. Like we do retrospectives every sprint, We are great. Okay, you're doing retrospectives every sprint, but it's the same as that person that comes in is like, I'm working on this thing today. I know it's not the highest priority because the highest priority that I was supposed to work on yesterday, it's blocked because I can't do X, Y, Z, and I'm just not going to work on that. I'm going to work on this other thing, no blockers. Like it's that kind of like,
Yeah.
like the feedback loops in so many organizations are just so inherently broken, and teams don't even know how to get them unbroken. That again, you need all three of those points. You need an external perspective to come in and say, wait, why aren't you fixing the feedback loops? Why aren't you having better relationships with other teams and customers? Why are you settling for this dysfunction? Why don't you keep pushing? Somebody from the outside should be able to look at those things immediately and say, this is a big problem. Yeah. Why are we not treating it like it's a problem?
That's how we work here. We're unique.
Agile doesn't work here. I thought I'd just sling that one out.
That was a good one. It doesn't work here because we're special.
That's right.
New team members that are onboarded to the team, they see it. But because they say something, they're basically told, listen, you're new. You'll understand one day. This is how it works around here. Right. So an external person, on the other hand, could say, wait, that's not how other companies do things. So external perspective is welcome. The counter to that might be our culture, the way we work, all of those things that people bring up and say, yeah, but that's all good, but it won't work here because, right? So that's the counter to that. But as a coach, you can come in and say, I've seen way too many times these sorts of things, and this is what really works out there. So why don't we try something in a safe environment? Maybe try it like for a sprint. Treat it as an experiment, see how it works. When it works, go back and pat them on the back and say, you did something for a sprint. Do we continue or not? And if it worked, people would say continue. So we continue. Now that's done.
You know, I'm interested in a tool like that for the takeaway of this category. When we were putting the agenda together, I was having a hard one with this one. But I think a takeaway for this category, and I don't think I've ever seen it, maybe one company I've ever been at did something sort of like this in the form of, it was more like presented like a 360 feedback type of like your peers review you. Oh, this person thinks this, but how are they perceived? Trying to put evidence with the perception, put them together to try to get you to kind of see past your own biases. That's right. So my takeaway in this category is create something called a perception mapping session. I've never used a perception mapping session. I've seen it more of like a 360 feedback, that kind of stuff, and putting it together to say, you're doing interviews, basically. You're doing one-on-one interviews, and it's along the lines of 3 questions. It doesn't have to be 3 questions, but basically is what's your biggest challenge? What do you think others in the organization think about your team? And what feedback have you received about your work? So I'm trying to understand your perceptions, how others perceive your work, but then I would try to get the external side of that is like, hey, when you're interacting with this team, and you probably could put together some kind of like real high level scoring, like the Likert scoring of like a 1 through 5, 1 through 7 or whatever.
Yeah. It is Likert.
Yeah, you could put together some kind of survey like that about the team. Hey, when you work with this team, how much do you agree or not with these statements?
Right.
And you could kind of do that to develop this kind of, I'm trying to think of like the most fair way to develop some kind of coaching scorecard for a coach to start with, to say like, this is how this team perceives itself. Because a team would take that survey.
Sure.
And then other teams would take that survey about that team. And if it really is anonymized, I mean, that's a problem right there. But if it really is anonymized, you can get an excellent starting point. Whereas, I talked to your manager and he thinks this, or I talked to team XYZ and they think that.
Those are discrete data points that might not even be valid. So what you're describing is, I think, what Management 3.0 has in there, really? Where every team member looks at every other team member, and this is typically not anonymized, but it can easily be.
Sure.
And say this person, does the job adequately, or goes above and beyond the call of duty, or it really doesn't really go out of their way to help out. And so there's, on the Likert comment you made, it isn't really about giving a numeric score. It's it's like, well, yeah, they go above and beyond, I'll give them a plus or a minus if they don't, or I don't know them or about their specific contributions in this way. So I'll just put a question mark. Now that can be extended to the team's level. When you're working with this other team, you can do that. Again, this is up to the coach to come up with instruments like this. Start small and then scale up. What you're doing is you're avoiding the blame game here by saying, on the whole, as a team, we tend to fall short here. You can do other things too, like heat maps and things like that. You can do that as well. But so there are various techniques available that a coach should have at their disposal. The point of all this is build trust first, and then talk about why you're doing it with the perspective of, this isn't about casting blame or admonishing anyone. It's more about, how can we collectively raise our game? And that includes working with the leadership, specifically there, because you really want to avoid the blame game there. Even if it's like, it's not even about the person at that point, because when you're coaching at that level, it isn't about how are we doing things in, I don't know, DevOps or whatever. It's not. It's about finance. Well, it's like one finance person, right, on the leadership team. So you've already all but named them already. You got to avoid that. There's some skill involved in doing that, right? But you can do that.
There's skill involved, but this is the wonderful thing about being in the seen it all business is your turf wars. I mean, when you come in as a coach, and you obviously see a bunch of turf wars or this and that. That's why I'm trying to look for a takeaway in this category. Let me build evidence of the perception. Even if the perception is just perception, once you run wide surveys across the whole company or customer base or whatever, other teams, whatever it is, like you get solidified evidence of that perception. And now your task is changing the perception by actually changing the perception.
Right.
That's the hard work.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? You don't know what you need to change until you see, like, this team is perceived as delivering slowly. This team is perceived as being difficult to work with. This team is being perceived as being combative. If you tell the team, hey, you guys are perceived as being combative, obviously a combative team is going to be
combative. That's all they know.
They're not going to believe you. What are you talking about? We're combative. No, everyone else is combative. I don't understand what you're like.
What the hell are you talking about, Brian?
There's some like presented with some facts.
Yeah.
You can begin on a neutral playing field. Anyway, once you've surfaced these perception gaps, which is what these really are, they're perception gaps. Once you've surfaced these gaps, you come into another challenge that I want to talk about. So even when you get the team to agree, okay, look, we are seeing the evidence. We see all your, like, you ran a bunch of Likert surveys. Is coaching always a solution? Is the tool of coaching being over applied? There's a lot of people out there banging this drum right there. I remember, like, about 2 years ago, if you remember on the podcast, the product people who were real big on product growth or whatever, like, they were banging this drum as like, coaching is nonsense. It can't help you at all with our, but that was before all the people were like, you need AI or a blockchain or whatever else. So team not collaborating, get them coaching. Team missing deadlines, get them coaching. Poor code quality, get them coaching. A lot of team dysfunctions have nothing to do with skills or mindset or collaborations. They're symptoms of other problems that the coach is really like uncovering along the way, and get them coaching. Like, coaching may not fix some of these problems. Yeah, it might uncover some problems. This is like, now we're back in the Scrum category, why people hate Scrum. Yeah. Scrum's going to uncover a bunch of problems, and you're not willing to do anything about any of them. So now we're going to blame Scrum, because we got to blame something. Because, I mean, we can't, how dare you, like, not blame something? I'm going to bring you right into the against, which is the Deming version of fixing things like this.
Our friend Deming.
Which is meddling. All this stuff disguised as coaching is actually meddling. Your team composition changes monthly. The problem is not coaching there.
Right.
Okay. If your team has two product owners, or if like one product owner is split across 3 different teams and 3 different product lines, the problem is not coaching. If your team absolutely cannot do anything about anything they bring up in the feedback loops, like, the problem is not coaching there. You have some organizational design issues that, maybe the coach can like write their congressman and take it up the ladder or whatever, and hope that they can make progress or whatever. Defaulting to coaching in this case is pathologizing teams and letting the organization who caused this problem in the first place off the hook.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that because I think a lot of coaches will do.
All right.
Listen, if you're a coach and you're doing this, you're simply saying, wait, I know the problem's not with the team necessarily, right? It's org design, or it's the fact that they're in this huge scaling kind of framework.
Are you about to say meet them where they are?
Meet them where they are.
This is a great time. This is a great time.
It's a good time to talk about it.
Meet 'em
Coach,
where-
I do not like that term
In the gutter.
because I
Meet 'em
do
where they are.
not like where they're in the alley behind this nightclub at 4 a.m. I do not like that term, right? Meet them where they are. They are where they are. You don't have to meet them there. Because if you meet them there, you're going to be there, and they will force you to be there. This is where we are. This is what we do on Saturday night at 3 a.m.
Oh, no.
Listen, you got to be able to tell people and express why where they're at is not a good place to be, right? And so if you can do that, now have a place in mind where you want to take them to and why. Express that to them, right?
So you're advocating for a change they need to make, a vision of the future.
A change that you make and the right reason that they believe in, right? You have to be the evangelist and say, what are some of the things that you don't like about where you're at now? Where would you rather be?
What would you say if I said it's dangerous to be that person that points out the environmental problems because they are making the organizational constraints visible so that we can negotiate? That is a dangerous spot to put yourself in.
It really is dangerous.
You're going to shoot the messenger.
That's the easiest way out for an org is to shoot the messenger. And guess what? They get off the hook doing that, right?
And they do.
Often they do. So to answer your question though, like what advice would I have? Well, listen, first and foremost, if you're a coach in this situation, keep that resume updated.
Oh, I didn't expect that.
That's got to come here, right? But the other thing is, if your team believes what you're saying is the right way to march forward with, right? The org can say that and they can sacrifice you, right? But guess what? The team still believes that. This is like saying, well, you don't like what you see in the mirror, so break the mirror.
Yeah.
Get another mirror. You say you're going to like what you see, you're still a fat, ugly person in the mirror, or whatever you are. But right, my point is, changing the mirror isn't going to change you.
You're still a repulsive individual.
Yeah,
in the
that's
mirror.
what you are. Yes. You're less than a model. Too much coffee.
Oh, too much pressure. I like separating team problems from organizational problems because the organizational problems that they all affect teams, right? And usually they affect more than one team. They're all artificial. If I'm going to weigh in on the four at a whole, it's just to say upstream problems require coaching upstream to solve them. I understand that like the coach is being applied to be like, go over there and fix those people. But you already gave us your insight into, like, well, the executive team or leadership, whatever, they require a whole different style of coaching, and it's way more cutthroat than the individual teams. And I guess my against in this category of meddling is we're applying it downstream because we can do that in order to deflect the blame downstream. But these things come from upstream, so we need to handle them upstream.
Yeah. If you're a first base coach and you're basically your management of your team,
Right.
baseball team in this case, isn't just making the right hiring decisions. It doesn't really matter. You can have the best first base coaching you can, right? But you're not going to make that much of an advance on the team's progress. A lot of coaches will stop at the team level, right? And they'll just say, it is what it is. Or the teams will tell you, this is our environment. This is how it is here. And you have to work within the constraints of that.
Yeah.
So if you're a team coach and that's where you belong and that's where you want to be, okay, fine. But really, you're not going to get much traction, honestly. You've got to develop a spine and go up to management and say, listen, these things over here are solvable. Solvable?
Both.
Yeah, you can dissolvable.
Leadership can be dissolved in water.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not-
dissolvable. But really, some of these problems that I'm about to tell you, they're real, right? And which of these would you want me to tackle next?
Right.
And they might say, there's the door.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But at least you've told them. And if you don't do that, you are really reneging on your commitment.
I mean, I think you're on the takeaway right now. You don't even know it. We cut this into 3 points because we wanted to zip through this category. On your way through the coaching engagement, you're mapping the team's constraints. You're mapping problems and you're bringing them up to whoever you work for. But one of the constraints that you're bringing up is what needs to change for this team to succeed. that is outside the team's control. Because at the point where you're talking to management, hopefully you're talking to management because there's something within their scope of accountability that they can help influence. Because if they can't influence anything, why did they hire you in the first place? And then also, what are they doing in management? And also, like, get out of my office. Sorry, that was three things. Like, if the list is long, so you can bring things to them, but if the list is long, like, there's a point where your job ceases to be coaching and becomes advocacy, and now I feel you're doing too much at this point. Like, things are getting murky. Here's what the team needs. Here's what I can help them with. Here's what needs to change in the environment.
You can help.
Yes, I mean, the best coaches will go around the organization finding the people that are accountable for those things, and then I'm gonna say tasking them,
holding them accountable.
It's not like, hey, we need you to help us. It's holding them accountable in the most respectful manner of the word. Accountable is like, you are failing at these things for us, and we need you because we can't succeed without you. If I was to put it harshly as a member of leadership, this team needs you to do these things successfully or to figure this problem out, and you're the right person. You have people backed up behind you that can't succeed until you figure out how to succeed.
I agree. And one of the ways you can do that as a coach is to raise impediments at that level and say, we have an organizational impediment. Now, you should probably have a forum to discuss these things, whatever cadence you want, with the right leadership team. And then just say, here are things that we are blocked on. These are impediments. Who can help with this?
Right.
Tentatively, I might suggest it might be Mary or John or whoever. And if John's not the right person, it doesn't matter, because they will be the first people to speak up, and they'll just say, Mary will just say, that's not me. That's, Hildegard over there, or whatever. And so you just say, okay, right, fine. And the best way to do that is probably on a Kanban board of some kind on a leadership level. So that's one thing. Also, don't wait till the next time before you revisit this issue, right? Send out reminders before the next time you meet and say, next time the expectation is this will move from column X to Y. You're not saying you will do this by a certain date, but you really are. You're not really saying, I'm telling you, Brian, as the CFO, that you need to do X, Y, Z by this date. But I really am, because I'm saying, here's a card in your name, and it needs to move by the time we meet again next. And hold them accountable. That means when you meet next and it hasn't moved, they will give you 50 reasons why it hasn't moved. I'm busy. We're all busy, okay? So at that point, grow a spine and say, yes, but.
Yes.
Everyone agreed to do their bit on all of their cards. What can you do to make it there by this time tomorrow? Next time we meet, this time tomorrow. You have to have the burning coalition. If you don't have that, you're not a coach.
You've addressed the environment, you clarify the problem, you've established consent, you've got everyone working together. You start working with the team, you hit another wall. Like the team's polite, they show up, they say the things they want to do, they put the cards on the retro board or whatever. You've addressed the environment, you've clarified the problems, you've established consent, right? The teams claim they want to do things the right way. That's what you're saying. You bring things to other people, they say, oh yeah, we'll totally help, right? The next point is resistance versus readiness. So in coaching, resistance is often treated as something to overcome. It is a barrier, right? Well, some people, maybe not you, because you already went out of your way to say on this podcast, well, we need to figure out what the hangups are, why the resistance. Right. Let's dig into it. So you already set up the resistance is information. You just need to get your arms around it and absorb it properly, because that's critical information. Yeah. But I see a lot of coaches getting rattled by this kind of stuff, or not even wanting to challenge it because they know they're going to start a conflict, and they don't even want to start a conflict. And then if the teams at first appear unwilling, obviously they lack the safety or resources or clarity or whatever, because they just don't want to do it. But sometimes my against here is we're a lot of coaches, especially the ones that are weak in coaching skills, what they'll call resistance, it frames the team as a problem and the coach or the coaching or whatever as a solution, which does nothing to help the coach, because that just perpetuates the adversarial relationship. And then the team, again, without really understanding and jumping straight to solutions, oh, you need to do 2-week sprints or whatever. When management asks the coach, get this team on 2-week sprints and align them with all the rest of the teams. The team has already faced multiple challenges or change initiatives or change management that's been forced on the management. Their skepticism is earned. Their skepticism is because management says, just do this and you'll be successful. Just go with this coach. Yeah. So they've been fed a lot of this stuff. So it looks to you as an outsider as unwillingness to change, right? Oh, they don't get that high NPS scores. Right. People says this team's difficult or whatever, which we already said earlier in the podcast. Like, that could be useful to you. And now you come to find out, like, well, this team is difficult to work with because maybe the team is 8 people and like 4 of which they're all offshore and they keep getting traded out every month by their offshore company.
Right.
And like they can't keep the good people and they're really frustrated about that. That stuff's completely out of control. So like, yeah, you can say that, okay, the team needs to stop being so skeptical about change or coaching or whatever. But also maybe they've been handing this coach that is just a pawn of management and is there to, quote, get them back on track or, quote, whip them into shape. The other side of that is like some resistance is like real. Like you need to get your arms around this resistance to understand what the real problems are, which you already outlined early in the podcast. Like, oh, the team is the problem.
That's like a blanket assumption often, right? So if you're brought in as a coach by management and they tell you why they're bringing you in, don't just go and run with that because that's the easiest thing you can do to appease them. Are you really doing the right thing? So that's one. The other thing is, I said earlier that should a team be able to like let go of their coach, fire their coach, whatever. Yeah. They have very little say in hiring their coach because they're usually handed down a coach. As a coach, you need to come back every so often and say, is this working for you? Has this made a difference? And there are ways to do that, right? So if you can do that and you can sort of get a sentiment at least, use sentiment analysis, whatever, to see you're making a difference and then feed that up to the person that hired you perhaps, right? Yeah. The important thing is for the team to say collectively, yeah, since you've come here, we have done these things. And so how do you get to that? You can ask the questions, and don't say, since I've come here, have we improved? No, you just say, over the last 3 months. Oh, by the way, you've only been on the team for 3 months, right? Or whatever. Just say, what are some of the gains that the team feels they've had? Write those down and then ask the question. Yeah. Why have we got those now as opposed to in the past, right? Why couldn't we have done those earlier? And you'll start to see things like, well, you advise us to break things down smaller into our sprints or whatever it might be. Okay, so you are making a difference, right? You're just not having people pat you on the back. Explicitly so, but write those down and then feed them up to the people that hired you. So you can get validation in this way for what it's worth. I mean, it's not always to justify why you're there. It's really to make sure that the team knows you're there and you're making a difference. Yeah. Now, having got to that point, project forward. Where do we think we can go? Having come this far, where's our next stop on this train?
You just threw out a great takeaway that I want to say, let me tell you what I heard. What I heard was teams will resist the coaching when they fear losing something.
Yeah.
Whether it's autonomy or expertise or whatever, their identity before you became a member of their team or whatever, like it doesn't matter what it is. If you can come up to speed and understand what they're protecting, then maybe you can find a way of making the change less threatening. You're not going to do that. If you're installed as a member of management, and you're there to just whip them harder, good luck doing any of that and keep their resume updated.
I agree with that. I also think there's some nuance here, and that is if you're a member of staff working for the company as opposed to a consulting type of coach that comes in, there's a difference here. And I've seen this perceptible difference, and it's very perceptible, right? Yeah. You can say the same thing that a member of staff would say, but it's poo-pooed on, right? But here's a consultant telling you the same thing, and people will listen to that.
Yeah.
And I think this is like an age-old thing with consulting anyway, but if you are a consultant as a coach, remember that, right? And if you're internal and you're a coach, also remember that. You can wax lyrical about all the things that you're saying. However, you need validation externally. What you don't want to do is tell your manager, hey, look, I've done what I can. I've only moved the thing so far. I'm like Sisyphus trying to move a rock up a hill. But you need to get an external consultant because that means you're out the door. Right. So instead, do this. Reach out to your community, talk to people You don't have to necessarily be like detailed about the nuances of your challenges, company, etc. Get some validation. Go to your boss and say, here's what I think, and it's been backed up by these other people, right? These other luminaries or whatever. That might help you. But absolutely, there is that factor of an external consultant versus an internal person saying the same thing.
Well, that closes the category and brings us to our final and maybe most practical question that we're going to talk about, which is, you've been assigned to coach a team that you didn't ask for. You've done everything right. You checked assumptions. You built relationships. You've clarified the problems, and they're still not engaging. And they still revert to bad behavior. At what point, do you walk away? There's a reason you got to keep that resume updated 24/7 all the time. And it's because sometimes things don't work out. The team doesn't engage. The organization resists what you're trying to do. Everyone's going through the motions. People want you to meet them where they are. They tell you, you know what? I need you to stop rocking the boat.
Yeah, don't upset the apple cart. So often what happens is consultants or even regular employees, whoever they are, but coaches will go in and say, I'm embedded. I now need to succeed. It's sort of like you're being thrown into quicksand. You have to survive.
There's an against that I have written down that's exactly what you just said, which is sometimes the most important thing that you can be is present and consistent for a team that is struggling, and they just need one person to help them build the trust or the truth or whatever it is they need to get ahead. And it may be super frustrating, but they just need one person sticking up for them in this pathological organization they're a part of. That's one side. I only have two against in this category, so I'll just rattle both of them off. Sure. And the other side is many of the most powerful coaching relationships have a good deal of resistance inside of them. So if the coach walks away at the first sign of difficulty, which I know that's not really what we're saying is the first sign of difficulty, but if the coach walks away when things get difficult, they don't clearly see a success path immediately or within the trial period, 90 days or whatever, they may miss the opportunities to make a real impact on the organization and these people's lives of the team. So I only have 2 points. Is number one, if you walk away too soon, these people need an advocate. You could have been that advocate. The other thing is, if you walk away too soon, there's no judge on what the correct time period is. Every team is different. Walking away, quote, too soon, it might be premature. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, I'm all willing to hear the side of this category of sometimes it's better to walk away.
Yeah, sometimes coaches are looking for quick wins. They go in, they're eager, they've been entrusted with this duty, right? To go make this team better or whatever. So they're looking for a quick win. This is where you can really sort out the people that are looking to make a quick impact versus people that want to make a real lasting change, right? With either a team or an org or both.
Yeah.
So that's one. But the other thing is, should you have the option to walk away or at least be mindful that you can walk away? Absolutely, right? You should absolutely have that because there is such a thing as uncoachable team. There is such a thing as an uncoachable executive team. At the end of the day, you may have been brought in just as a pawn, as a scapegoat. So recognize it and then walk away. The way you do that in either of those cases, right, is to set yourself a time box and say, I'm here for X number of months, weeks, whatever it is, contextual, right? If within that time I haven't made an impact on these things, then this wasn't meant to be. I'm not your person. But don't do that in your own head. Do that explicitly on a piece of paper, virtually, whatever, in a document, and share it with the person that hired you and say, you hired me to do this, right? Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to do. So lay that out. It's one page, guys. It's not like a big document. One page.
It's like a product strategy, actually.
Exactly.
You're describing a product strategy.
Product strategy for your being there. And then you say, these are things I want to do. These are things I need from you. And then lastly, these are things that I'm going to deliver. If I get all of those, if in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, I haven't made a difference that we agree is a real difference, then I will part company. And you need to do that. Don't look at it as a slight on yourself. Don't also look at it as a blame on the org or the team. It's just sometimes the forces just don't align.
two things right now that I don't know if they're on the for category or if they're actually for against. Like you said, well, don't look at it as a slight on the organization. I don't know. Like walking away does send a clear message. It's just like an employee quitting. Like it does send a clear message. It's like, hey,
to those that care.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you make a point. I mean, it does send a message.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like, hey,
it sends a message to your teams that this guy, if you've built rapport with them and trust, and they kind of believe in what you're doing,
right.
and then you leave, it sends a message that, look, this is like not a salvageable situation.
Or they're just not taking it seriously. They're not bought in to change. I mean, the other side of that is the coach that stays, because I have seen quite a few of these coaches that stay when even I, as an outside observer, can see there's no progress is going to be made here. It sends a message about what these coaches are in it for.
Yeah.
Because I can clearly observe from the outside, well, these coaches they're obviously cashing their paychecks and seemingly okay with the lack of progress until the end of the term or whatever their contract, but it's not pretty.
Sometimes I've seen that with coaches that are internal to the org, and they believe that they're fine, they're coasting until one day they're not.
That's the exact place that I've seen it is people internal to the org until there's a big economic downturn or whatever, and then everybody will be gone at once. Continuing to coach teams that clearly are resisting and don't want coaching well beyond whatever goals you said. The same thing with a product strategy.
Sure.
Continuing a product strategy that's not working beyond, like, with all the indicators and bells and whistles going off that it's not working, why would you do that?
Well, yeah, and also I think if you continue doing that, you're actually doing the org a disservice,
Right,
to be quite honest with you.
And yourself.
And yourself.
The takeaway here that we outlined is actually pretty good. Set explicit timeframes and success criteria at the start.
Yep.
Set some goals at the start, just like a product strategy. Set it at the start, meet on a regular cadence to evaluate the success criteria that you set out. Because it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that, hey, this coaching engagement's not working out or whatever.
Sure.
And then if it's not working out, either try different tactics or whatever, or call it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, different tactics could include things like, well, maybe mentoring as opposed to coaching, etc., right? There's various things you can do. But again, for the purpose of this podcast, I think that's our takeaway.
So where does this leave us? So you can't effectively coach people who don't want to be coached, but teams that appear unwilling, you can't coach people that don't want to be coached, or teams that don't want to be coached, or both.
Right.
Teams that appear unwilling, they might just be responding rationally to a lack of context or unclear problems or broken trust from the past, especially in these organizations where they brought in coaches that were just like spies of management, the eyes and ears, the eyes and ears.
The eyes and ears.
And so you're like, your job isn't necessarily, as a coach, is not necessarily overcoming resistance. It's understanding the resistance and then coaching to the right solution.
Yeah, I think part of that is what you said earlier. What are they trying to protect, whether it's teams or executives? And understanding that is key.
Right. Well, that being said, this was an interesting podcast that kind of came out of nowhere for us. I'm glad that we could do one that was down the lane of coaching. I feel this applies to the executive level. It applies to product. It applies to software development teams. Like, it applies all up and down in all aspects of business. So it's not in one lane or another.
Absolutely. Yeah, hopefully you all agree. Again, like and subscribe, and let us know what you think about this podcast and potentially other topics you'd like us to delve into in the comments below. And hey, let's be careful out there. It's a Hill Street Blues reference for the older people.
Is that?